Okay. So give me 1 second. So I'm going to repost this from, I have 2 accounts listed on here. My personal account is what I'm posting. Oh, hey, Terry, it's good to see you, or see your chat. If you go to YouTube and you do a search, or even just do a Google search for Dr. Rad, the Rad Tutor, you'll see my picture, which is my face in a blue shirt and tie. And there will be some helpful videos there specifically for drug calculations. In addition, I'm going to reshare the files I shared. You want to review all of these files that I'm posting up right now. Hopefully you're seeing these. And then anyone that comes in after, like I said, after I posted these, just go ahead and share them with whomever. I will post these on a Google OneDrive at some point, and I know I'll have to repost them at some point. But go ahead and make sure you review the Dosage Calc review intro, and then you'll have the practice test so you have an idea of what the format of the test looks like. Just a little bit of background, since many of you don't know who I am. Except for a few people that I've had already in class. My name is Dr. Dave Radziris. The nursing people usually just refer to me as David. I also teach in the biology department. In the biology department, I go by Dr. Rad. And I'm a chiropractor, and in my practice, I go by Dr. Dave. So I wear many hats. But I am the person who writes the drug calc test for all 4 semesters. I'm the person that put together the review pack, or not the whole packet, but the math portion of the reviews. So if there's anything you don't like about those things, I'm the one to complain to. Even though I've created the test, your instructors and your lab coordinators, they have all the availability to change what has been presented. Meaning they could change the question just as much as I can, because they get an open format to do that. And so just because they have the test that I created doesn't necessarily mean I know what test you're going to get, nor do I know the key. And so I always have to ask them. I've given them maybe a half dozen to a dozen separate tests over the years. And so I'm sure they use a variety of those things. But the practice test that I posted there is going to be helpful because it gives you an idea of what to expect on the test. So for the review, what I'm going to do is just kind of get started with a few things. If you came in late, please, if you came in late, just type into the chat box that you need the reviews, and someone will just repost the files. So if someone types into the chat, send me the files, just please repost those. That would be helpful. All right, so in just a moment, I opened up all my reviews and I just wanted to see what we have here. So thanks. I see you guys participating in the send me the files thing. So it'll be there. All right. So the first thing that I want to make sure you know is that week 5 of this class, you are going to have, I believe it's week 5 or week 6, you're going to have a 25 question drug calc test that'll be short answer, so it won't be multiple choice. Of the 25 questions, you can miss 2. If you miss more than 2, then you're going to have, then that's considered failing the drug calc test, and you'll have to retake it the following week after remediation. My hope is that after I show you a couple of things that you won't worry about that, because I'll help get you and navigate you to where you're supposed to go. We're going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to just go over a couple things that are important, because I don't know how many of you, well, first of all, did any of you have some practice questions already, or is this the first time you're learning about drug calc?
This is my first time.
This is my first time as well.
First time.
I learned dimensional analysis. I didn't like it.
Okay. All right. So all good. And if you said you didn't like dimensional analysis, I'll apologize in advance, because that's usually what I show to help get people through this stuff, but I will also show you alternatives if you don't like dimensional analysis. So you don't need to be a dimensional analysis whiz to navigate this stuff, although I do think it's helpful if you have that as a strategy and worth practicing. All right. So the first thing that I need to tell you guys is the types of questions that you'll see associated with the with drug calc here is there's a variety of questions. A lot of them are going to be very basic for the first semester. A lot of them you should be able to do, and you're going to look at it and be like, oh, I got this. But one of the things that's also helpful to know is that you need to know a couple of things off the top of your head without it being provided to you on the exam. So there's some things that are considered your basic conversions, and I'm going to write those out just so we can see them together. The things you need to know for your test are these. You need to know that 1 gram is equal to 1,000 milligrams. You need to know that 1 milligram is equal to 1,000 micrograms. You may also see micrograms written as this, okay? That's the Greek letter mu, which is another way to write micrograms. This is actually more precise, but you'll see the MCG on your tests most likely. You need to know that 1 liter is 1,000 milliliters. And you need to know that 1 milliliter is the same thing as 1 cc. You need to know that 1 kilogram is equal to 2.2 pounds. You need to know that 1 teaspoon, which is often abbreviated lowercase t, is the same thing as 5 milliliters. You need to know that 1 tablespoon, which is often abbreviated big T, is 15 milliliters. And you need to know that 1 ounce equals 30 milliliters and that 1 hour equals 60 minutes. So what these are your equivalents that you are expected to know. Now in the, where it says the Dosage Calc Review Intro, that lays out everything I just wrote out for you. Okay, the only thing that's missing on there is the cc's to milliliters conversion. Notice that there's nothing on there about inches and centimeters and feet and meters and things like that. And that's because you don't use that when we're talking about drug calculations. You may get introduced to that when you talk about topical solutions and how much of that needs to be done. Meaning how much, to calculate surface area and things like that. But that's going to be a unit that's not necessarily part of your drug calc test there. Okay. All right. So, so I'm going to go ahead and clear that out.
Sorry, I have a quick question.
Yes.
The writing, I can't really see what you said. 1 milligram is equal to 1,000 what?
Micrograms.
Micrograms. And this is also another unit for microgram.
Say that one more.
The unit in brackets is also another unit for microgram. I can't
Correct.
see the writing very well.
Correct. Yeah.
Is that UG? Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's not U. It's the Greek letter mu, but it looks like a U.
Yeah, that's how I call it. And then the 1 milliliter is 1 what? Is that cc or L?
cc.
What's that, please?
cc means cubic centimeters.
Cubic, yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah,
I have a question about the last one. What does that say?
1 hour equals 60 minutes. And like I said, all of these are written in that the Dosage Calc Review Intro that's been reposted a couple of times now. So when you open that up, and you should be able to open that up and just Alt-Tab if you're on a laptop, and you should be able to look at the PDF while I'm doing it too. And I just want to make sure you guys have it. If there's anything that's missing that you don't have access to, I'm going to give you my email address too, so you can make sure you can email me if you have anything that you're missing. Go ahead. Someone was asking a question.
I came in late, and you mentioned there was something posted.
Yes. So please repost the information that I posted already. And if you came in late, just type into the chat, just say please repost, and someone will repost the information. So thank you, Alicia. It's okay if it just fill the feed with downloads. It's not a problem. Okay.
Thank you.
So there's 3 things to download. There's the intro, just the things you need to know, the practice test, and then the key to the practice test. Any other questions on what I wrote on here as far as the equivalence?
Many of us writing repost and no one reposting the documents.
You got to look in the chat. So
Yes,
if it
in
was,
the chat, no one reposting the document.
It's actually there. Yeah, it's right there.
yeah, I see Alicia is reposting it. She just reposted just now. So
Yeah.
if you're on right now, you should be able to see that. And if you're not seeing it, just email me and I will get them to you.
Yeah, I don't see it. Can you type in the chat your email?
It's already there in the chat. And I'm doing it one more time. You might have to open up the chat and scroll down. I don't remember which. I hope I didn't give you my. No, I gave you the right email. Okay.
So there's the dosage calc, and then there's the 110 review.
Correct. Yeah, there's a dosage calc review intro PDF, and then
And
the
110.
17 spring NSG 110. I know it says NSG. It's supposed to be NUR, but
Okay.
so, and then 110 practice and practice test key.
Oh, okay. I see it.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you.
You're welcome. Okay. So the next thing to kind of know for this test is, and this is probably something that's really, really helpful, is you got to know your rounding rules. You got to know when it's okay to round and when it's okay not to round. Now, for these basic drug calc tests, when I say basic, I mean for the individual semesters, the rounding rules apply to there. But when you're in 3rd semester and you do pediatrics, there's different rounding rules. In fact, you may not be allowed to round, or there might be accepted values given the scenario or the lab that you're in, or the pediatric office that you're in, and you'll worry about that when you do 3rd semester. In fact, 3rd semester, you have a separate drug calc test. So you can stress over that later, but if it helps you, I also did some reviews on that as well. All right, so some basics for knowing your rounding rules. One thing to know is that you should have at least 2 digits in your answer. What I mean by that is you never want to write something like just 0.5, because a lot of times that 0.5 gets lost. And so what is better is if you write 0.5. So make sure you have that placeholder in front of the decimal. Now, saying that, if let's say you got an answer of 0.50, you don't need that trailing 0 after the 0.5, okay? 0.5 would be perfectly acceptable as your answer. So use leading zeros when you have something like 0.5. Don't use leading zeros when you have 0.50. Just get rid of that extra 0. You don't need that. And the reason I'm saying that is because if you're answering your test and you write 0.50, and then for some reason your instructor doesn't notice the decimal point here, she's going to think that you wrote 50 as your answer, and they're going to mark it wrong. Okay? So I just want to make sure that you're aware of that when it comes to rounding. Okay? Now, when you have numbers that are greater than one, or a number or a value that's greater than 1, you're typically going to round to the 10th place. So I'm just going to write tenths. Okay. And what I mean by that is an example. Let's say I have an answer of 1.2 0.25 milliliters. I am going to round that answer to 1.3 milliliters. Notice it's hard to see. Make sure your decimals show up there, okay? If you have a number that's less than 1, you typically will round to the 100ths place. So what I mean by that is, let's say I have 0.275, okay? So I have 3 decimals represented. So the 10th place was right here underneath the 2. I'll just indicate right there was the 10th place. The 100th place is the next place over, so where the 7 is. I would round that then to 0.28, and let's just say it's milliliters, okay? That's how you do rounding with those specifics. Now, when you do a basic conversion, which we're going to practice here in just a little bit, like if I go from milligrams to grams, or I go from milligrams to micrograms, you do not round those basic conversions. You do round when you go from pounds to kilograms, or when you're doing any other problem that's not just a basic unit conversion. And like, I'll go over that in a little bit more detail, what I mean in just a moment. The other thing about rounding is sometimes it'll tell you, you know, to give you a tablet. Tablets can be halved. So just as a scenario, I'm going to draw a green tablet. Here's my green tablet. And we can assume that that tablet is scored, meaning you could break that tablet in half. A capsule cannot be cut in half, okay? The capsule is just like 2 pieces of gelatin capsules that come together, and all the little medication, yellow's not a good choice, all the medication is scattered in here. I know it looks like I'm drawing some bacteria here, but that'll give a couple of you that have me for micro some flashbacks. But you can see that I can't cut a capsule in half. A tablet most likely can be cut in half, but a capsule cannot be cut in half. The only reason I'm bringing that up now is because when you actually go through and practice some of the practice test questions, you may actually see that as an answer choice, and you might want to think that you can cut a capsule in half, but you cannot do that, okay? All right, so a couple other things, some helpful equations that I think will help you, especially if you don't like you don't like dimensional analysis, although that's what I typically use to show how things get solved. But one that would be helpful is knowing this formula. You take what you are ordered over what you have available, so over your have, times your quantity. So an example might be, let's say the doctor ordered 500 milligrams of a particular medication, and then what you have available is 250 milligrams per capsule. If I wanted to find out how many capsules to administer, I would follow the order over half. So the order is 500 milligrams. I'm sorry, my 5s look like S's. Over the half, which is the 250 milligrams, times my quantity, which is 1 capsule. That will give me 2 capsules. If I were going to do this dimensional analysis wise, I would take the same starting point, 500 milligrams, put that over 1, times what I want to get rid of, which is the milligrams, and what I want to keep, which is the capsules. And again, the reason I like to do this is because it helps me to eliminate units, and I'm left with what I'm looking for, and I get the same answer, 2 capsules. And you could argue successfully that we can cross out units here as well, and I agree with that 100%. So if you like to do order over half, I think it's a great thing, and it'll actually get most, if not all, of the questions you have in this on this test correct. Okay.
But what about when you have to go to different conversion, like if you have to say if you had milligram and microgram, that's the hard part doing desired overhead.
Sure. Okay. So first of all, I'm gonna tell you to do something more simple. So let's say I'm going from 500 mcg. I'm going to try and write a little bit clearer for you guys. 500 micrograms, and I want to convert that to milligrams. Okay. So there's a couple of ways. I'm going to show you the way that you don't like first. Okay. Which is dimensional analysis. Then I'll tell you what I do. So 500 micrograms, you can say that's over 1. You actually don't have to put that over 1, but if it helps with placeholders, it's fine. We already said that well, we don't want micrograms, we want milligrams, okay? One of the reasons, again, I like dimensional analysis is because you hear me asking these questions. I don't want this, I want that. And that way, even before I do anything else, I know I've set it up correctly. The other thing I know is that in 1 milligram, there are 1,000 micrograms. So you'll know which way to go. So if I were doing dimensional analysis or ordered over half, you could just do 500 over 1,000 times 1. That would work out. The difficult thing is knowing when to divide by 1,000 and when to multiply 1,000. So this might be helpful. Let's say I have a scale, and the scale goes like this. Here's my micrograms, here's my milligrams, and then here's my grams, okay? When I go from milligrams to micrograms, when I go in this direction, I'm actually going to multiply by 1,000. When I go from micrograms to milligrams, so I go in the other direction, I'm actually going to divide by 1,000. And then so you can see the same thing would happen here. When I go from milligrams to grams, I would divide by 1,000. And when I go from grams to milligrams, I would multiply by 1,000. Okay? Or what I usually do is if I'm going from micrograms to milligrams, I just move my decimal over 3, 0.5 milligrams. Does that help?
Wait, can you actually explain that one more time?
Everything?
I mean the dividing and the multiplication when you were talking about, if you were going.
Okay, yes. So let me go ahead and clear up and I'll show you the simple way here. I guess it's just a visual way of doing this. So I'm going to clear out my drawings. I'm going to write this out again. So I have micrograms. I have milligrams. And I have grams. So we all know that grams is heavier than micrograms, right? And we know that milligrams is the middle weight, okay? So if I'm going to go from micrograms to milligrams, which is what I just did, so when I go from here to here, I'm going from a smaller unit to a bigger unit, I'm actually going to divide by 1,000. When I go from milligrams to micrograms, so I go from the bigger unit to the smaller unit, I'm actually going to multiply by 1,000. That's just a way to remember that. If I go from milligrams to grams, I'm going to divide by 1,000 as well. And if I go from grams to milligrams, I'm going to multiply by 1,000. So whenever I move from right to left, so I don't have a laser pointer on here, I don't think, but whenever I move from grams to milligrams or from milligrams to micrograms, I'm going to multiply by 1,000. Let me show you an example. Go ahead.
Is this for all conversions?
For these 3 conversions specifically, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you can also, interject milligrams with milliliters and liters. And
That was going to be my next question.
Yep, and then those are the only conversions you need to know as far as unit conversions are concerned for this class. So if I was going from milliliters to liters, let me just do this here. Since you brought it up, I think it's a good thing, good point. So if I'm going from milliliters to liters, 1,000 is still my number, okay? So when I go from milliliters to liters, I'm still gonna divide by 1,000. And when I go from liters to milliliters, I'm still gonna multiply by 1,000. So this can be just a visual way to remember. Because they're always 1,000, there's 3 zeros. It's always about moving the decimal point. So like for me, when I see like I gave you the example of 500 micrograms, and if I'm going to milligrams, I just know instinctively to move my decimal over 3 spots, 1, 2, 3, and then that is 0.5 milligrams, and I'm done with that. Okay, and that's usually enough to answer when they tell you to show your work. They just want you to show how you got to the answer that you came up to. So drawing some lines underneath there is a good strategy to do. What about if I had, let's say I had 5 milligrams and I wanted to go to micrograms, okay? If I have 5 milligrams, I'm going to do the same thing, but this time I'm going to move 3 to the right because I'm going to multiply, right? I'm going from milligrams to micrograms. So I just follow the arrow, and that answer would be 5,000 micrograms. And that should make sense to you, because if 1 milligram is 1,000 micrograms, then 5 of those is going to be 5,000 micrograms. I hope that makes sense.
Hey, back to the dimensional analysis. Whenever you explained how you would write it out, it was what you want over 1, and then it was what you don't want.
Right. So let's work through a specific example. So give me 1 second, because that'll be good practice. So let me just pull up what I got here. Yeah. So let's say, so on your practice test, the first example I give is 1.75 grams. Again, my 5s looks like S's. I'm sorry. And I want to know what the equivalent of that is in milligrams. Oh, by the way, I'm only ever going to ask you to go from grams to milligrams, milligrams to micrograms, and then vice versa. There's never going to be a time where you're going to have to go from grams to micrograms, because you just wouldn't do that in a nursing situation. Maybe in general biology we had you do that, but not in nursing. Okay. All right. So if I'm doing dimensional analysis, I'm going to set up my 1.75 grams, and you could say that's over 1. That's not a problem. Times. And then like you were just trying to repeat what I said. What do I want, and what am I trying to get rid of? So I'm trying to get rid of grams, and then do I know an equivalent to go from grams to milligrams? And then the answer to that question is yes, because you know that 1 gram is 1,000 milligrams. Does that answer the question you asked?
Yes, and so whatever you're trying to get rid of should have the same, I guess, unit on the denominator.
Correct.
So like 1.6. Okay, gotcha.
Yep. We're trying to get rid of the G. So in traditional dimensional analysis, it's always about taking the units, and when I'm making a conversion, I get rid of the one I don't want to convert to the one I do want. So without even using any numbers, I know that I set it up right. And all I got to do is, if this is 3, and this is 1,000, and this is 1, that's all it is a matter of setting it up. I know it looks easy when I do it, and like I'm talking you through it. It really just comes down to practice, and practice is key.
This reminds me of chemistry.
It's exactly chemistry. And if you're sitting there going like, I hate it, I'm sorry. All right. So that's good for you guys. Let me just double check and see if you have any flow rate type questions, because that'll be helpful. And then we'll start working through some practice questions. Let me just see here.
Do we get like a minute per question, or you don't really know? Because the only thing with dimensional analysis, it seemed like it takes longer.
So, like I said, you don't have to use dimensional analysis with these questions, and it shouldn't take long. A lot of these you'll actually be able to just figure out in your head. And the tough part will be that they want you to show your work. So you need to write something down. And so order over half works out great. But you have 1 hour to complete a 25-minute or 25-question test. Okay. So you have plenty of time to do all these. Most people are finishing this up in under 20 minutes. And then you have that extra time to double check your work and things like that.
Okay. I thought it was like a minute a question. Okay.
No, but if you do it in a minute a question, you'll have plenty of time. Some of these are pretty straightforward. You'll have no problem whatsoever.
With the straightforward questions, like the ones that only involve moving the decimal point, if we just show like the little bumps, like, you know, that you move the decimal place like 3, does that count as showing work, or do we have to put it into an equation?
So
Show work.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So if I were the one grading your tests, that would be perfectly fine.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, I'm not the one grading your tests. So one of the things I would first ask and verify with your lab instructor to make sure, and ask like how they want you to do that, and give them a very specific example. Say I'm going to go, like question 1 says 1.75 grams to milligrams. How do you want me to represent my work? Is it okay if I just show the bumps? If they say yes, then you're good. If
Okay.
not, then I would just say just write times 1,000 somewhere, and that should satisfy that as well.
Okay. Okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I do apologize. I can't give you all absolute answers all the time, mainly because I don't know the answers either. There's certain things that are asked a certain way, and I just can tell you what, from a mathematical standpoint, what would be the right answer. But then they might be looking for something a little bit more specific. And what I mean by that is sometimes this is an okay answer, but sometimes they want this as an answer. So they want 0.5 or 0.5, or they want 1/2 to represent half. It ultimately just depends. A lot of times you'll see this associated with tablets, and then this you'll see associated with everything else, like milliliters is most likely the thing to be a 1/2 milliliter. All right, well, let's practice a few of these just to kind of get some repetition. I told Professor Walters that I would do a couple of these sessions with you guys, so I'll be doing this again next week. It's completely voluntary to join. By next week, I'll also have access to the drug calc ATI, and so I can give some get some feedback on that as well for those of you doing the ATI drug calc stuff. I don't know how much overlap there is between the ATI drug calc and then the actual drug calc test. From what this is the first semester that I've actually ever looked at ATI, so I know what ATI is. I just have never looked at it before. So all right, so we already did the first question, which was the 1.75 grams to milligrams. Let me just create a separate question that would be very similar to that question. Let's say I had let's just say 250 micrograms, and I want to convert that to milligrams. So if you're following the bump method, I like that. I'm actually going to use that from now on. My decimal point's here, and I'm going to move over 3 spaces. So my answer would be 0.25. Notice I got rid of the lagging 0 once I shifted that over. So 0.25 milligrams would be the correct answer. Notice that I did not round it to 0.3, and you also will not round that to 0.3, okay? If you don't like that, then you can do the 250 micrograms times the 1 milligram over 1,000 micrograms. And again, you'll know you set that up right. And again, I apologize for my letters looking sloppy. I like to blame it on the iPad, but I just write terribly. So, and again, you get the same answer, 0.25 milligrams. What if you got an answer that was 0.275 milligrams? Would you round your answer if we're just doing a basic conversion?
I would think so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. No, do not round basic conversions ever.
Okay.
So is this because it's less than 1, or we just don't round basic conversions at all?
Correct. It's because we do not round basic conversions at all.
Okay.
So let me give you another example. It's actually number 5 on the
Is that
test.
to keep accuracy?
No, it's just because when we're doing basic conversions, we're not doing any drug calc at this point. We're just doing a basic, simple conversion.
So when you're doing actual dosage calculation, that's when you can round.
Correct, and that's after you do all your calculations.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me give you an example. The question number 5, so I'm just going to write this down here. Question 5 says you have 25 micrograms, and I want to know how many milligrams that is. Okay, so if I do the move my decimal point over scenario, 1, 2, 3. So notice I have a gap here. So my answer would be 0.025. You would not round that to 0.03. You would leave it as that because it's just a basic conversion. Do not round basic conversions. Make sure you tell anybody who says that, and if anyone has a question about that, please point them towards me and I will help to straighten them out. You don't need to get into a fight with somebody because they're trying to tell you, no, you round everything to the 10th or the 100th. The exception is the basic conversions. Don't round basic conversions.
Hey, where will you be posting this PowerPoint, this lecture?
Where or when?
Where?
I plan to post it on my YouTube channel. So if you go to, if you just do a Google search for Dr. Rad and then the Rad Tutor, and Rad Tutor is all one word, you'll see my picture and you'll see a whole bunch of videos. And then what I'll do is I'll post it with today's date, and then I'll post it as, you guys are 110. So I'll post it as the 110 review for August 25th, 2020.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And then please let anybody know that. I'll also send this over to Professor Walters, and she'll put it on your Blackboard site as well. All right. So let's work through a couple more of these basic unit conversions. So I just harped on the fact that you do not round basic conversions, and now I'm going to show you the exception. The exception is when I go from different units, meaning when I go from US standard, so I'll just call that standard, if I can write, when I go from standard to metric, you will round to the nearest 10th if it's applicable. What I mean, in your example, it says you have a 128-pound individual, and I want to know the equivalent in kilograms. When you get your answer, you want to round your kilograms to the nearest 10th. Now, again, the only time we don't round is when we're doing basic metric unit conversions. When you do basic metric unit conversions, meaning all you're doing is going from micrograms to milligrams, milligrams to grams, grams to milligrams, milligrams to micrograms. Whenever you're doing just this, and then milliliters to liters, liters to milliliters, whenever you're doing those, that is when you do, that is when you ignore rounding rules. You just follow, you just write what's out there. A lot of times when you go from like grams to milligrams and milligrams to micrograms, you don't need to worry about rounding because your number's going to get big. It's only when you go from a smaller unit to a bigger unit, so like milliliters to liters or micrograms to milligrams. All right, so I have 128 pounds and I have going to kilograms. A little secret, we always go from pounds to kilograms. I usually don't write questions that say calculate how many, if I had such and such kilograms, how many pounds is that? Mainly because that's just backwards from what you would traditionally be doing. When you do certain medications, it's going to be based off of the patient's weight in kilograms. And so we're always going to be converting, or you guys will always be converting pounds to kilograms. So if I'm going to do this in order over half way, all I would do is take the 128 pounds and divide that by 2.2 kilograms, or pounds per kilogram, sorry. 2.2 pounds per kilogram, and that will give you your answer, which I believe is 60, 70.
Are we allowed to use a calculator on the test?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, you'll be given a basic 10-key calculator. And so while you're practicing this, you can certainly use your phone or any other basic 10-key calculator.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so when I do this, you actually, good. So but you actually will get 58.18181818. And so the thing to remember is when you go from pounds to kilograms, you want to round to the nearest tenth. So your answer would actually be 58.2 kilograms. Okay.
Question.
Yes.
What about if the problem says we have to run to the nearest 100th?
If it tells you that, then you go ahead and round to nearest 100th. But on these tests, that won't be, that you won't have to worry about that.
So that means that in case there's no the problem don't say nothing, we have to run to the nearest 10th, right?
When you're going from pounds to kilograms, yes. And
Okay.
when you have a number greater than 1, yes.
Okay. And when you have the number lower than 1 is 2 number after the dot. I mean, yeah, the nearest 100th.
You got it, yes.
All right. Okay.
You got it. And then again, remember, the only time you don't do conversion or rounding is when you have a metric system standard conversion, such as going from micrograms to milligrams,
yeah,
grams to milligrams, and all those things.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
If you were to go from kilograms to pounds, you don't round.
Right, and you wouldn't need to because any number times 2.2 is going to be a whole number.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, and then like I said, I won't ask you to go from kilograms to pounds because of that being that simple.
Okay.
All right, let's look at the next question here that says, this is question 4, that says 90 milliliters, and then that's how many ounces, okay? So you have to remember a couple of things. You need to know that, first of all, I'm going to set this up as if I'm doing dimensional analysis. So I'm sorry for those of you who don't like it. I don't want milliliters, I want ounces. Do I know how to go from there? I do, because 1 ounce is 30 milliliters. Now this is an equivalent. The number is actually not 30. It's less than that. I think it's like 29.9999 or something like that, but it's close enough to 30. So that's the number that we typically use. 90 over 30, and we get the answer is 3 ounces. It's supposed to be a Z, not a 2. Now, what if I had something like, let's say I had 100 milliliters, and I wanted to convert that to ounces. So I'm still going to follow the same format. And again, if you're doing desired over have, anytime you go from milliliters to ounces, you would just divide by 30. So what do you get? What do you think your answer is when you do 100 divided by 30?
Isn't it like the continuous 0.3333?
Good. So you get 3.333333. So what do you think the right answer would be?
3.3.
You got it. Perfect. Yep. We would just go to 3.3. We'd round to the nearest tenth. Again, the reason we're able to do that is because we're going from the metric system to this American standard, or whatever those units are referred to as. I don't know. Okay. Most likely, more often than not, you will always go in the reverse direction. You'll most likely go ounces to milliliters, but I like to give you the practice where you're dividing as opposed to just multiplying. Because if you're just multiplying, all I got to do is take your number of ounces times 30 and you'll get your right answer. All right, and we already did number 5. So now a couple other things that might be helpful. If you have something, these are just some extra questions. Let's say I wanted to calculate the number of milliliters I have in 1.5 teaspoons. Go ahead and work that out. and just let me know what you get. All right, I'm starting to see the right answers. So let me write out what we have here. So we have 1.5 teaspoons, okay? I don't want teaspoons. I want milliliters. And I know that each teaspoon is worth 5 milliliters. If you don't believe me, the next time you do some cooking, look at your teaspoon and it'll also say 5 milliliters. 1.5 times 5 is 7.5 milliliters. Okay, that's good. What if I had 10 milliliters and I wanted to know how many teaspoons that was? Good. And I'm seeing the answer come in there at 2 teaspoons. So another way to remember that is 10 ml, times 1 teaspoon, 5 ml. If you just automatically do that in your head, like I do, that's perfectly fine. Don't feel like you need to write out every single step, but you should write something. This is what has happened in the past. So Professor Nanjut in the past has been a stickler about looking over tests and then asking questions if you don't have any math or any other like explanation of how you arrived at your answer. So it's important that you have something written down just to make sure that you're satisfying the requirement of showing your work. And again, as I recommended, you would talk to your lab instructor, the one that's giving you the test and the one that's grading the test, to what extent they want you to write information out and try and get specifics and like do exactly like this. It's like, do you want to see this? Or is it okay that I just write, 2 teaspoons equals 10 ml because I know that off the top of my head? Some of them are going to be okay with it. Some instructors will be okay with it and some may not. And you just want to make sure you know that going forward.
So I have a question.
Yes.
During the exam, are we allowed to? We're gonna have all those formula on the exam, or we have to memorize all of them?
Correct. You need to learn and memorize all those the basic unit conversions.
Yeah. Okay. And during the exam, are we is it mandatory to show all our work? Or I mean, like you said, if I know the answer, or when I read the problem and I know the answer, can I just go straight for and put the answer, or I have to show all the steps how I get to the answer? I don't know.
No, and your question makes sense. And like I've said, you need to verify with your lab instructor what they want you to show, to what level of showing something. So like I would typically just, if I was going from 1.75 grams to milligrams, I would just move the decimal point or move the bump. Then if they wanted me to show my work as well, I'd probably just write times 1,000 next to it or divided by 1,000 next to it, just to show that they know how I arrived at that answer. So the short answer is, I don't know. The better answer is consult with your lab instructor and find out to what extent they want you to show the information.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Like I said, that's a very good and fair question, and it's the question I get asked every single semester, and I just want to make sure that you guys are also in the loop, for lack of a better term. A lot of times just a simple email can usually get to the information that you need, and then just disseminate that amongst everyone in your class. All right, just a few more things before we wrap up. Let me give you guys, let's see here. So there's a couple of questions that are coming down. I want to start off with, let's do this one. So I'm going to work on this question. This is question number 8 on the practice quiz or practice test. And I'm going to show you how to kind of navigate through it. And then I'll also tell you where people go wrong. So the first thing is number 8, question 8 says you have potassium chloride elixir, and it says you have 40 milliequivalents. And then it says POQID. Does anyone know what POQID means?
PO means by mouth and QID 4 times a day.
You got it. Yep. POD means by mouth and QID means 4 times a day. Now, when we say 4 times a day, how many hours is that between doses?
4.
6. 6 hours.
You got it. 6 hours. And I think I heard some of you discussing it. You would just take 24 hours divided by 4 and you would get 6. So every 6 hours. So another way that QID.
I'm sorry, can you go over that again? I can't see the writing. This is what? Is it EQ or?
Oh, yeah. MEQ.
MEQ, okay. So which of them is 4 and which is 2, please?
I'm sorry, which one is 4?
Yeah, I think you asked a question about this number and someone said it's 4.
Oh, no. I asked, the question I asked was, what does POQID mean? And so
POQ what?
QID. So
okay.
I'll write it out. So PO and then QID. So PO means by mouth and QID means 4 times a day. And then I asked, how many hours is that split up? So another way to write QID is also writing Q6H. Okay. I think in your packet.
Why is it Q6H?
Because every 6 hours is the same as 4 times a day. Because 6 hours occurs.
6 for 24.
6 hours occurs 4 times in a 24-hour period.
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome. So in your you should have received a review packet, and I think in the back of the review packet there's some common things like what does BID, QID, PO, PRN, PR, ODIC and oral and all those things, Q12H, Q6H, BID, Q8H, TID, all those things. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know where this packet is located. I just assume that you had a packet. And if you don't have a packet, just if anyone does anyone have a packet?
Yeah, it's in so if you go on Blackboard in the nursing 110 and 20 section where they're both together in the orientation, on the side there is a nursing student packet.
All right, perfect.
Yes.
Okay, so I wasn't just making things up. I was like, oh crap, you guys don't have anything. Okay.
So I have a question, please.
Yes.
So BID means 2 times a day?
Correct.
Okay. Also B for 2 times, IG for a day.
QD usually just means daily.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What does EQ mean?
What does what?
EQ.
So MEQ is actually, so I'm just going to write that off to the side here. MEQ means milli equivalents. And then the simple term for that is it just means the unit that potassium chloride is measured in. All right, so the next thing says that potassium chloride is available in 20 milliequivalents per 15 milliliters. So this is my order up here, is the 40 milliequivalents. And then my available, or my have, is going to be the 20 milliequivalents per 15 ml. Okay? And all that's given to me, or it would be written on the actual medication label. The question is, how many milliliters will you administer per dose? Can anyone just tell me that right off the top of their head?
I would say 20.
Okay, so I got some discrepancy there. So the answer would actually be 30 milliliters. So let me show you how I arrived at that. So if I'm doing desired over have, I would take my 40 milliequivalents. Again, I apologize for my writing here. Divided by the 20 milliequivalents times the 15 milliliters. Okay?
Yeah.
Give me 1 second. Oh, okay. All right. Now, when I do that, 40 over 20 is the same thing as 2, so you just get 30 milliliters. Now, if you don't like ordered over have and you prefer dimensional analysis, this is how you would solve this question using dimensional analysis. Start with the same order, the 40 milliequivalents, times, I don't want milliequivalents, I want milliliters, 15 milliliters, 20 milliequivalents. So I'm doing the same thing. Either way, I get 30 milliliters. Also, if 15 milliliters includes 20 milliequivalents, then if I were to double that to 40, then that would be 30 milliliters. Does that make sense? Now, there's one other factor that's really, really important, and this is, so usually this is not where people go wrong on this question. Where people go wrong on this question is this part right here. The last thing it tells you is to mark the cup. So make sure you mark your 30 milliliter cup where it's indicated. Some people will just draw like a line, like indicating at 30 milliliters. Some people will circle it. Some people will draw an arrow and then reiterate that they're pointing at the 30 milliliters. Again, that's something you want to confirm with your lab instructor what they want you to, how they want you to mark the cup. Okay. So don't forget to mark your cup. Don't forget to mark your syringe. And don't forget to mark the tubex, and we'll talk more about what all those individual things are when we look at them later on. So, so what I'm going to ask you guys to do between now and next week is to review the packet, go through it, try them out. If you have a hard time getting the answers, great. That's the things that we can certainly work on. If you can go through the practice tests and it's super duper easy and you don't have any questions on that, then great. You're exactly where you need to be practice-wise. However, if you have questions on some things that you might see coming up in future drug calc tests, like second semester, third and fourth semester, I'd be happy to show you some of those things that aren't on this test, but will be on future exams. If you have any other questions, go ahead and ask them now. If not, like I said, go ahead and practice and we'll reconvene next week. You're welcome.
Same time next week.
Thank you.
Same time
Thank you
next week.
so
Yeah.
much.
Tuesday at 3:30. You're very welcome.
We're using the same Zoom link?
Yeah, it'll be the exact same link.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I agree with you. I'd rather focus on the 130 test next semester as well. Okay. All right, see you guys later. I'm still here if anyone has any questions.